Hello, I'm Sarah from Sutton Schoolswork. Welcome to our Assemblies Online. Now, each week we're going to be bringing you a Bible story, a thought about what it means for Christians, a question or two for you to think about, and a fun activity for you to do as well. So are you sitting comfortably? Well, let's begin.
Hello everyone, my name is Andrew and this is Harlequin. Say hello to everyone, Harlequin. What's that? Oh, you can call her Harley if you want to. Okay, today we are thinking about choices. Now, we all make choices. Have you made any choices today, Harley? What have you chosen to do? You chose to eat worms for breakfast. Okay, well, hopefully you didn't choose to do that, but we all make choices in our lives. Some of our choices are good choices, some of our choices, well, they're not so good choices. Have you ever made any choices that are not so good, Harley? All your choices have been good, have they? Okay, we're going to play a quick game of opposite choices. So I'm going to show you one word and you have to tell me the opposite choice. Are you ready, Harley? Let's have a practice, shall we? So, if I showed you the choice down, what's the opposite of down? What is it, Harley? That's right, it's up. Don't show off. You ready? Should we have a go? Here we go then. So here comes the first one. It's dirty. What's the opposite choice from dirty? That's right, it's clean. Yes, I know you're clean. I know you had a bath yesterday. Now, what about the opposite of short? That's right, it's long. What's the opposite of soft? That's right, it's hard. What's that? Oh, you want to do this one, Harley? Okay, what's the opposite of fast? It's slow, that's right. What about the opposite of young? That's right, it's old. What's the opposite of right? Now think carefully. Well, if you think it's left, you're wrong. That's right, it's a little bit of a trick one because the opposite of right can be left or it can be wrong. Which brings us on to what's the opposite of good choices, Harley? That's right, bad choices. Now, sometimes we make good choices, sometimes we make bad choices. I think it's time. Do you think it's time for a story? I think it's time for a story. In our story today, we discover one man who makes a very good choice and one man who makes a choice that's not so good. Now this story is a special Bible story called a parable. A parable is a Bible story with a message, trying to tell us something important. I wonder if you can spot the good and the bad choices they made.
This story is about two men. One was called Wise William.
Hello! Delighted to meet you.
And the other was called Foolish Frank.
Who said that? Who said my name?
One day, Wise William had a good idea.
Ding!
He said,
I'm going to build myself a house.
So he did a careful survey, looking for the best place to build. He took measurements. He took expert advice.
Yes, I'd like some expert advice, please. I'm building a house. Thank you.
And he took his time. Eventually he chose a nice sheltered place with a good view and a firm foundation of solid rock to build his house. One day Foolish Frank had a good idea too. He said,
I'm going to build myself a house.
Foolish Frank had a good look round, looking for any place to build. He took no measurements. He took no advice. He took no time at all to choose a nice, soft, sandy spot down near the beach to build his house. So they both got to work. William took paper and a pencil and set to work drawing up the plans. And Frank took his bucket and spade, drew a nice picture in the sand and started work immediately. William took delivery of a JCB and spent 10 days building firm foundations on solid rock for his house. Frank took delivery of 10 dozen sacks of ready mixed concrete and spent a couple of hours building the walls of his house. And so they continued, hour after hour, day after day. Foolish Frank fast and furiously building his house on the sand, and wise William slowly and carefully building his house on the rock. And finally, after many hours of hard work, after many days of back-breaking labour, after many a brick had been laid, the two houses were finished. They moved all their furniture and favourite things and settled into their new homes. But one day the weather turned nasty. The rain came down, the floods came up, the wind blew harder and harder. Wise William was nice and cosy in his house, but foolish Frank was starting to get a bit wet. He looked up and saw the ceiling was leaking, the walls were creaking, the little house on the sand was beginning to tumble and crumble. Frank ran out of his house just in time for the whole house to come tumbling down with a resounding crash. Foolish Frank looked at the remains of his house. It had been washed away with the sand. But on the rock, wise William's house still stood tall and strong.
Thanks, Rick. I wonder why foolish Frank's house fell down, whilst wise William's didn't. After Jesus told the story, he explained to his friends what the story really meant. He said that wise William was like someone who listened to Jesus' instructions and then followed those instructions, whereas foolish Frank was someone who listened but didn't follow the instructions. It's really important in life, whether we're a Christian or whether we're not, to always try and make good choices and good decisions like wise William. Can you be a wise William? And don't worry if your name's Frank, you can be a far-sighted Frank rather than a foolish Frank too.
Christians believe that in the Bible, Jesus teaches us lots of ways to live, doing things to help others, showing kindness and showing love.
So, we've got some more questions, some more opposites for you to have a go at. Are you ready?
So, instead of being mean, you could choose to do the opposite and be kind. Instead of being cruel, you could choose to do the opposite and be gentle. Instead of being selfish and keeping things to yourself, you could choose to do the opposite and be generous and share. And instead of being foolish, you could choose to do the opposite and treat other people how you'd like to be treated and be wise.
So, I've got 3 questions. They're quite hard questions, so maybe you would like to pause this video after each question and then have a go at writing down your answer. If you're lucky enough to have an adult with you who you can chat to about it, you could talk to them too. Are you ready? You ready? Here we go then.
Question 1. What do you think Jesus wanted to teach people with that story? Question 2. I wonder what might be a bad choice to make. And question 3. I wonder if you can think of a really good choice that you have made. We want to encourage you today to be like wise William. For Christians, that means listening to Jesus and following his instructions. But that also means making wise decisions, good choices that will help you and help others around you.
Do you think it's time for an activity? I think it's time for an activity. Why don't you make a house of your own that can remind you about all the good decisions, the good choices that you're going to make in the week ahead? Maybe you could draw your own picture. Oh, wow, did you draw that house, Harley? Impressive. Or you could build your own house. Maybe you've got some wooden blocks that you could build a house out of. Or maybe you've got some Lego you could build with. Don't worry if you don't have any wooden blocks though, because you can build a house out of paper, just like this one. Harley, have you had a go? Is that your house? Is that your house? Oh, it's quite hard with wings. Do you want to see how to do it? On your house, maybe you could write down some good choices that you're going to make this week. What good choices could you make this week, Harley? Yeah, you could do your best with all of the work you have to do, whether it's schoolwork or stuff you're just doing at home. Maybe you could listen to what other people tell you, especially if it's an adult at home who's looking out for you. And maybe you could just try being kind to others, even if you don't feel like it. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you've enjoyed watching. And hopefully we'll see you again next week. Don't forget to tune in. And remember, wise William made those good choices this week. Say goodbye, Harley. Until next time. You're watching, here goes. So first of all, you need to start with a square. So if you have a rectangle piece of paper shaped like this, you'll need to make sure you measure one of the shorter sides and make sure you measure along so that all the four sides of your bit of paper are equal, and you'll need to cut the extra bit off. You got to cut in a straight line, Harley. There we are. When you have your square, fold it in half, like that. Then do another couple of folds on each half. So, how good are you with maths? You've got 4 quarters, a bit like that. Okay? Then once you've done that, turn it over, so you've got it underneath, and then fold down into 2 more halves, a bit like that, and then again fold into 4 quarters, a bit like that. Now, you with me? This is the tricky bit. Now, fold out one of the sides into a triangle, like that. Good for your maths, this. And then fold out the other side, similarly, into another triangle. And when you turn it over, you've got your house. All you need to do then is get yourself a nice pen. Let's do blue then. Draw yourself a nice big front door with a window, and then you can draw as many windows as you want. Maybe you'd even like to put yourself in one of the windows, waving out, a bit like that. And there you are, your finished house. Maybe you could even put your house in your window with your rainbow and teddy for everyone walking by to see.